というわけで総合トップは私でよろしいですね。
へいへいへい、乾杯でございますよ。
負けた負けた、久しぶりに大負けだ。
しかし打ってる時の坊主気合入ってたな。結構怖かったぜ。
よく言われます。自分ではそんなに目つき変えてるつもりはないんですがね。そんなに怖い目になってましたか？
The three of us nodded empathetically in agreement. So that was Akasaka-kun, the Mahong prodigy. Before he goes home from his assignment, maybe I could have him go play at a high-stakes table in my place. But it's not good to get greedy.
じゃあ仕方ないや。約束です。夜の学習会はこれでお開きにしましょう。申し訳ありませんね、おやっさん。今夜はこれでお開きです。
しゃあねえな。冷えて寝るわ。体力つけんと体が持たん。
お仕事が大変なんですか？
ああ、おやっさんは品見沢ダムの第一工区の監督さんなんです。
Yeah, he's gonna die.
住民とは連日小競り合いをしてますからね。しんどい商売ですよ。
来年あたり第二工区も任されちまうかもしれねえな。黒田さん、血圧上がりまくりって聞いたしよ。身が持たね
えや。おやっさんなら大丈夫でしょう。あなた見た目よりも面の皮厚めですしね。
俺だって仏じゃねえからな。
Wait till you get dismembered.
腹渡にくり返る時あるぞ。特に園崎のあの小娘は我慢がならん。あいつの顔面いつか簡単には治らんくらいに歪ませたろって思ってる。
まあでも給料はいいんでしょ？かなり破格の給金だって聞きましたよ。
おっとりめえだ。あんなに世知辛い職場で給料が安かったら誰も残らんよ。あ、クラウド、警察はいつになったら村の人間全部追っ払ってくれるんだ。国から立ち退き命令とか出てるんだろ。
ねえ、どうなってるんでしょうね。
The old man, who identified himself as the foreman of the Hinamizawa Dam, spewed a few complaints until he felt better about it, then left quietly.
じゃ、行きましょう。あとは佐藤さんに任せますかね。
大石さんは帰られるんですか？
私が一緒でもお邪魔しちゃうだけでしょ。それに佐藤さんの仕事を買ったのはあなたです。私は対価を払ってませんからね。
Oishi-san was kind of sketchy, but he was strangely conscientious about some things. I felt quite a bit of a gap between myself and Oishi's generation. From that part of him I didn't comprehend.
じゃあ坊主、いや、ジャンシ様にもう坊主なんて言えねえな。赤坂くんでよかったっけ？
はい。
じゃあ赤坂くん、行こうか。
では赤坂さん、また何か困ったことがあったらいつでも頼りに来てくださいね。
Can we really? I don't know.
大石さんにお支払いできるような対価はもう持ってませんよ。
んじゃ今度の勝負で少し手加減してもらえたらチャラにしますよ。
Oishi, seemingly still not having had his fill of playing around, but without overstaying his welcome, disappeared into the night. Pretty appropriate use of club music. I didn't expect Akasaka to be so well versed in the Mahangs. The informant named Sato-san had me get into his car before he set off. He favored narrow roads and made numerous short left turns.
左折法による尾行確認ですか？
詳しいな。
checking to see if you were being tailed by making left turns was a rather classic technique. If it was just a single pursuer, you could confirm it that way. But if you were being tailed as a team, this archaic method wouldn't let you shake them. Of course, doing it anyway was better than not.
赤坂君が何者かは旦那から何も聞いてないんだが、やっぱり警察関係かい？尾行確認に詳しいなんて、あとは探偵者くらいしか思いつかねえね。
言わなければならないものでないなら拒否したい質問ですね。
やれやれ。麻雀やってからすっかり雰囲気が大人びちまったな。会った時のあのおどおどしたあんたはどこ行っちゃったんだよ。
I smiled wryly. Looking back now, I had to be a little grateful for being made to play Mahang. Thanks to that, I was able to relieve some tension. Eventually, Sato-san, confirming there were no cars following us, slipped outside the city. We were on a pitch-black country road, unable to see anything besides the lights outside. The only thing I was able to hear were the hum of the car's air conditioning and the chirping of insects and frogs.
旦那からひなみ沢村については多少のことは聞いてんだろ？
御三家という旧家による支配や、現在は園崎家が一党独裁をしているとか、そういう。
そこまで知ってるならくだらない前置きは省略していいな。
ではお願いします。犬飼大臣の孫の誘拐に鬼ヶ淵氏主導名が関与しているか否かを。
Sato-san checked the rearview mirror one more time to confirm there wasn't anyone behind us before speaking.
昨夜、園崎本家で親族会議が開かれたそうだ。親族会議ってのは旦那から聞いてるか？
いえ。
普通に親族会議って言ったら、まあ親戚が集まってお茶でも飲むようなもんだよな。だが園崎本家の親族会議っていうのはそんなのんびりしたものとはわけが違う。
A family council held by the Sonozaki main house. That would be a meeting between those who truly controlled Hinamizawa village. They wouldn't be talking about private family matters. It would be about the village as a whole. About organizing activities against the dam project. Among other things, everything would be decided there. In reality, they were deciding the fate of the village. At the head of the meeting was Oryu Sonozaki, more or less called Empress Sonozaki. As the ultimate decision maker of the clan, she was to be feared and respected. Infirm with old age, she was often unable to stand on her own, but her words carried enough weight to sway the fate of the village. It seemed that lately she'd grown weak, and on days where she wasn't feeling well, remained bedridden. Family councils that occurred while she wasn't feeling well took place with her on the floor. In the middle of a dignified Japanese-style room, still on a futon, only the upper half of her body sitting upright, a stern look on her face. That was Oryu Sonozaki. Sitting next to her was her heir, Mion Sonozaki. She was still young. No, young wasn't quite the right word. She was a girl who remained childish. Her role was to merely sit beside Oryu Sonozaki, sometimes responding to her requests. However, she was the only one deemed worthy to succeed Oryu. She had the same hawkish eyes, enough to give pause to anyone who so much as looked at her. Much was expected of her in the future, this granddaughter of the Sonozaki's leader. And also on either side of her sat several other important members of the remaining three families, the Kimiyashi family and the Furude family. First on the list for the Kimiyashi family was, of course, the mayor of Hinamizawa village, Kichiro Kimiyashi. And lined up beside him were several more of his direct relatives. Opposite them sat the other of the three families, the Furude family. The Furude family was only comprised of the family of a Shinto priest, so the only ones sitting there were said priest, his wife, and their daughter Rika. Okay, so actually this gives us a pretty good point of reference as to where we're at. Rika's parents are still alive, right? And the damn construction guy is still alive. So that does actually kind of cement into our heads a bit more of like what time period we're dealing with, I guess. That's actually pretty interesting. Rika was doted on by many of the older folks in the village, and it seemed that Oryu was no exception. While the stress from just attending a family council was said to be enough to shorten your lifespan by 3 days, it seemed like Rika was the only one exempt from that. No matter how charged the atmosphere was around her, she paid it no mind, instead humming along as she doodled in a sketchbook. In fact, the night before, lying on her stomach while humming and doodling, she nonchalantly tucked her legs into Oryu's futon like it was a kotatsu. All this was the 3 families. And all around the room, lined row upon row, were relatives of the Sonozaki family. The only ones who were afforded cushions to sit on were direct relatives. The others were left to sit in the Seiza position directly on the tatami mats. With Empress Sonozaki enshrined at their center, they were almost like a giant snake coiled around the room. It was decided that everyone would sit in order of their rank. That sounds familiar. The number of people from the Sonozaki family was overwhelming. The fact that the Sonozaki family held so many seats at a meeting where everything pertaining to the village was decided made determining where the balance of power was held in the 3 families as clear as day. The number of members in attendance from each of the families directly reflected how much influence they had in ruling Hinamizawa.
その会議で何が話されたんですか?
Sato-san, after remaining silent for a while, quietly began to speak.
マスコミ関係に支払ってる謝礼金の額が大きいんじゃないかい?
Breaking the long moment of silence was the head of the Kimiyashi family, Kichiro Kimiyashi. The Onigafuchi Defense Alliance wasn't a business. They were nothing more than a private organization pushing for the cancellation of the Hinamizawa Dam project, with no reliable source of income. Fundraising had always been a problem. When they first started operating, they'd managed to collect a sizable amount of funds through donations, but as the conflict dragged on, that amount was steadily declining.
石を投げるだけが全ての時代じゃないさ。マスコミの力も侮れないのは重々承知しているし、今後もその力を借りたいのは同じさ。
The expressions of the people related to the Sonozaki family were sullen. As the one who suggested that they should borrow that power, was the family head, Oryu Sonozaki. The battle wasn't just about the force of arms. In the civilized age, there were civilized methods of fighting. Oryu suggested that, creating a strategy incorporating the mass media. Oryu's foresight was spot on, and the effects of that plan, while at first unclear, slowly began to manifest. If the physical confrontation at the construction site was meant to delay progress in the dam by even 1 day, then the propaganda war using the media was aimed at attacking the dam project itself. At first, there were those who had doubts about that strategy, but there was nobody now who called those results into question. But in order to maintain those media ties, a colossal amount of money was required. As long as the amount of funds they had was abundant, things would turn out fine. It couldn't be argued that it was a massive expense, but the results spoke for themselves. But with the conflict continuing to drag on, the circumstances had changed. The head of the Sonozaki family, no, the one who had sat at the pinnacle of the Hinamizawa's three families, Oryu, had suggested the idea herself, so it was already untouchable, and continued to be allowed to drain from the budget. Nobody acknowledged that it should be so allowed, but nobody could say anything. That was the price of dealing with the mass media.
どう思うお嬢さん。
The only person who could object to a plan proposed by the head of the Sonozaki household herself was probably Mayor Kimiyashi. Oryu, with a hard-to-define expression on her face, as if she had severed herself from the fetters of mortal emotion, simply listened quietly to Kimiyashi's words. But really, it was hard to tell if she was quietly listening or didn't even have the intention of listening at all.
去年機関士の値上げの理解を得るのにも随分苦労したじゃない。一度だけってことで理解を得て、また今年もってわけにはいかないよ。ねえ、古手さん。
The mayor looked to the priest and his wife from the Furude family for affirmation. The priest gave a vague expression, avoiding a prompt response. But his wife gave her answer without a second thought.
そうですね。機関士代は特に貧しい家には大きな負担になっています。みんな自分たちの村のためだからと耐えていますが、これ以上の値上げはやめた方がいいでしょうね。
The bulletin was, as its name implied, a bulletin published by the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. It outlined the Alliance's activities, ideals, and resolve, but you couldn't deny the contents were rather piecemeal. That bulletin's main goal wasn't to inform people, but rather was something to sell to businesses and people living in the village or connected to it, and using those sales to collect funds. In other words, it had become something of a tax. Of course, it didn't have to be said that this was one of the main sources of income for the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. Originally, purchase was supposed to be voluntary, but in Hinamizawa it had silently become the opposite. In the neighboring towns as well, it seemed that many businesses were buying copies just to avoid butting heads with the Alliance. The priest whispered to his wife not to say anything unnecessary, but was struck down decidedly with a cold glare. Cowering from that glare, the priest shut his mouth. The priest's wife always held the power in their relationship. That was because she was the one who carried the Furude bloodline. The priest merely married into the family. He was nothing more than somebody who adopted the name just to join the three families. He should have been able to find a spot fairly high up in the hierarchy of things, but the lack of authority in his voice meant that he still had not gained any favor. Casting a backward glance at her rather desperate parents, Rika continued to doodle whimsically without paying them any mind. Signaled by a look from Oryu, Mion brought her ear closer to her grandmother. There, something was said to her in a quiet voice. After responding with a couple questions, with a nod from Oryu, Mion looked around the room and conveyed her grandmother's words.
機関士の値上げもやむを得ません。
Kimiyashi made a face like he had just bit into something unpleasant, but that expression quickly disappeared like it had never happened at all.
だけどミオンちゃん、君だって分かってると思うけど、機関士の負担は決して軽いものじゃない。南沢の全ての人間にかかる重みなんだ。あんまり負担をかけすぎれば内部から崩れることだって。
内部から崩れるのは誰ですか？
どれって別にそういう。
最初に崩れるのは誰かと聞いています。
Being cross-examined by a girl who still had fragments of childishness remaining within her, The word stuck in Kimiyashi's throat as he sunk into silence. Mion repeated her question once more, looking around the crowded room. Everyone refrained from making eye contact to avoid being pierced by her gaze. The words she had spoken were inarguably said in proxy for Oryu. That's why when Mion spoke them, they carried the same weight. But the look in her eyes was different. Like Oryu's, they had a hawkish gaze, strong enough that anybody looking upon them would freeze in their tracks and yield. But that gaze was, without question, one that belonged to Mion herself. As Mion would eventually inherit everything from Oryu, the day when she would stand up as a young and capable leader in her own right would come. Nobody wanted to believe otherwise for even a minute. That's why nobody even thought of Mion as just some sort of little kid.
君吉さん、機関士の値上げごときでは誰の決意も崩れませんよ。
Kimiyoshi, while grumbling a little bit, made a gesture as if to say he had no objection.
マスコミ関係への出費は継続とします。その出費がさらに圧迫となるようなら、機関士の値上げもやむを得ない。
Mion had rendered her judgment. Everyone bowed their heads, silently listening to her words.
園崎家当主代行、園崎美音です。我が名において以上決定し、異議はこれを認めず、抵抗ある場合は実力をもって排除します。
The formal decree was read aloud, indicating her judgment. There would be no retrial, but there was a certain authority behind those words that even a courthouse couldn't compare to. If she was a judge, she would have banged her gavel, signaling that the matter was settled. Mion pulled out a large bell from inside her clothes and rang it. Everyone present could only prostrate themselves before the harsh sound of the bell.
なんとも大時代的な親族会議ですね。
あんたみたいな若いもんにはちょっと信じられないだろうけどね。こういう古い土地にはこんなのが未だ根強く残ってるもんさ。
It was exactly as Oishi had said. The old system of the three families had vanished, and now the Sonozaki family was running things by themselves. On top of that, their rule was borderline despotic?
会議はそれで終わりですか？
いや、まだ続く。先を続けるよ。
It's a long meeting. Eventually, after the ringing of the bell ceased, there was a deafening silence. Within all of that, a lone man shuffled closer to Mion and whispered something in her ear. Mion asked several questions quietly in response. When she was satisfied, she motioned for the man to leave. The man who talked to Mion was a member of a gang that her father was the leader of. That organization had the entire area of Shishibone City under its control, so it was quite well known even here. Of course, this was talking about the criminal underworld, so it's not like just anyone would know. But just showing a patch with the gang symbol on it was enough to resolve any disputes in the neighborhood. Mion's biological father, Tooryu, was her daughter's husband. The power of that man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. And so that man, from his position as the next in line to control the three families, continued to coerce everyone around him with his unconventional presence. Mion exchanged a look with her father. Was it okay for her to tell what she just heard directly to Oryu? It looked like she was asking him that question. Her father, gently but firmly, nodded his response. Mion also nodded, then sidled up to Oryu and informed her of something. Eventually, Mion finished conveying her message, separated herself from Oryu, and fixed her posture, waiting for Oryu to signal her response. It wasn't often that Oryu showed any emotion. That's why when she started to laugh quietly, a vague sense of uneasiness crept over everyone in the room.
ほら、難儀なこともあったものよの。
Oryu was laughing so happily that Kimiyoshi had to hesitantly ask.
どうしたんだい、お嬢さん。
我らにとって土地が母なら、この度のダムの騒ぎは母の命を脅かされる騒ぎっちゅうことだろうな。
Kimiyoshi, unable to comprehend the meaning of her words, looked confused. Oryu, with a wide grin on her face, turned towards everybody and addressed them in a clarion voice.
ダムの親玉の大臣がの、孫さらわれちまって、右往左往しとるっちゅう話だ。こんれでおあいこだの。
That's certainly a good bit of information. Information on the kidnapping of Minister Unigai's grandson shouldn't have leaked from anywhere. How did they know? Even we didn't know this much about the kidnapping incident. Exactly how did an antiquated household so far away from Tokyo come to know of it? It was a tranquil place, but I couldn't help but have an uneasy feeling about Hinamizawa Village. At some point, I had mentally filed this place away as unrelated to the incident at hand. That mental paperwork had just blown away in the wind.
どうして鬼ヶ淵主導名が知っているんだ。
Sato-san, unable to come up with an answer, fell into silence.
すみません。続きをお願いします。
なあ。
犬飼建設大臣のお孫さんがさらわれた。お嬢さん、それは本当かい？
That major of an incident was nowhere to be seen in the newspapers or on TV. But in Hinamizawa, there was nothing strange about Oryu knowing something that the rest of the world didn't.
我らの痛みは母を失う痛みじゃの。それに値するとは思わんが、孫を失う痛み。少しは答えるといいんじゃがの。なあ。
The last question wasn't addressed to anyone in particular. It was as if she was looking for consensus.
だが、土地と人様の子供ではわけが違うの。隠すのは構わんが、怪我だけはさせたくないものよな。こにゃ何の罪もねえ。大事にしたれな。
それはつまり鬼ヶ淵氏主導名が誘拐事件に関与しているという。
必ずしもそうとは言えねえな。
どうして当主であるお涼がこれほどまではっきりと誘拐した孫の処遇について指示を出しているのに。
兄さん、こりゃね、園崎家のいつものことなんだよ。
いつものこと？それはどういう意味です？
Let's say there was a particular problem. One that wasn't exactly favorable for the Sonozaki family. If Oryu shows concern over that particular problem, hearing that, somebody who attended the family council would be helpful. As a result, Oryu's wish would be granted. However, neither Oryu or anyone else would know exactly, or know who actually did it. With this kind of clever little ploy, the Sonozaki family was able to manipulate events even though they had their hands laid out on the table.
では親族会議に出席していた誰かが犯人ということですか？
あるいはそもそも犯人なんかいない可能性だってあるよな。俺自身その万座の一同の中に誘拐犯がいるって確信を持ってるわけじゃない。
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Seemed like it froze for a second. I don't know if that showed up in the recording or not. It's kind of weird though.
ただ自分の意見を述べただけさ。
It was an odd and unpleasantly secretive way of doing things. Were they involved or weren't they? I couldn't see beyond the veil. This much, however, I could say with certainty. This kidnapping was an ironclad secret. No matter how high a position someone was in, even they wouldn't know about it. If there was somebody who would know about it, they would be connected to public safety. In other words, one of us. The only other options were people connected to the case itself, including the minister. There would be people affected by the incident, or the people that committed it. In any case, there was no way an old household in a place removed from Tokyo, over 6 hours of highway travel, should know about it. Them knowing at all was already strange. My suspicions began to accumulate, like falling snow.